can never have too many tools. Shop DeWalt deals at Lowe's. Get a free Select DeWalt 20-volt max power tool when you buy a Select 20-volt max 5-amp-hour battery kit. Plus, get a free additional DeWalt 20-volt max 8-amp-hour battery when you buy a DeWalt 10-inch 20-volt max dual-bevel compounded miter saw. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 6/24 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Welcome to Leading Beyond Limits, the podcast where we explore the extraordinary journeys and insights of remarkable leaders who have pushed the boundaries of what's possible. Your host, Angel Radcliffe, who is a digital transformation leader, author, speaker, and financial educator, will lead each episode and dive deep into the stories, strategies, and philosophies that have empowered these exceptional individuals to lead, inspire, and achieve beyond the ordinary. We're about to embark on a journey of discovery and inspiration, and together, we'll learn what it takes to lead beyond limits. So grab your cape, or at least your favorite coffee mug, because we're about to unravel the extraordinary tales of trailblazers who've turned impossible into I'm possible. Let's get started.
You know, it's funny, but the most dangerous threat to a great company, it isn't a sudden market crash or like a catastrophic product launch or even some loud, dramatic boardroom coup.
Right. It's rarely that obvious.
Exactly. It's actually a quiet, perfectly polite meeting where everyone in the room just nods in total agreement.
Which is, frankly, a terrifying image once you really understand the mechanics of what's actually happening underneath all that pleasant silence. Because, well, when there's no friction, there's usually no growth.
Right. And usually we associate failure with noise, right? We expect alarms to be ringing when something goes wrong.
Yeah, you expect some kind of warning sign.
But today, we're taking a deep dive into a brief but profoundly striking leadership scenario that flips that expectation completely upside down. And I want to be clear, our mission today isn't to give you, the listener, some tactical 5-step checklist for management.
No, not at all. We want to guide you through a thoughtful pause, really.
Yeah, we're going to examine this subtle, pervasive tension in how teams are built and how leaders actually operate behind closed doors.
It's a psychological tension that honestly almost every leader faces, and they often do it without ever consciously realizing it. So as we explore the emotional pressures embedded in this scenario today, I want you, the listener, to reflect on your own environment.
Think about the spaces where you hold influence.
Exactly. Notice how comfortable you actually are with friction, because this deep dive is really about what happens in the quiet, unglamorous moments of decision-making.
Let's just jump right into the core facts of the scenario then. It starts with a very bold premise. It says, diversity is depth. And then it follows with a stark warning. Sameness is a risk.
Yes, those are the foundational ideas.
But the anchor of this entire concept, the line that really, stops you in your tracks, is the claim that confirmation bias is the silent killer of great companies.
It's a heavy phrase.
It is. And if confirmation bias is truly a silent killer, does that mean most leaders don't even realize their organizations are dying until, the autopsy is already being performed?
That's the painful reality, yes. The dying process of a company or a team, it isn't usually a sudden, explosive event. It's a slow, very comfortable stagnation.
Comfortable stagnation.
Yeah, and it's invisible precisely because cognitive ease feels so incredibly productive. Human beings, and particularly leaders who are, suffering from decision fatigue, we are biologically wired to seek out information that validates what we already believe.
Right. We want to be told we're right.
Exactly. When everyone in the room agrees with you, your brain rewards you with a hit of dopamine. It feels like alignment. It feels like momentum. But it's actually just an echo.
So to understand why an organization might silently fail like that, we have to look at the very foundation of how they build their teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to examine the scenario's critique of hiring for what the corporate world lovingly calls fit.
Ah, yes, culture fit.
Because for decades, hiring for culture fit was the absolute gold standard of recruitment. You wanted someone who could seamlessly slide into the machine.
And, look, it's entirely understandable why that became the standard. On the surface, hiring for fit is framed as this noble effort to protect the company culture. You want to preserve the magic, right?
Right, you don't want to break what's working.
Exactly. But if we look at the psychology beneath that, Hiring for fit is very often a shield. It's a defense mechanism against the fundamental discomfort of disagreement.
So fit is essentially just a corporate euphemism for cognitive ease.
In many cases, yes, absolutely. Think about the immense psychological pressure on a leader who is trying to scale a business or manage a large department.
You're constantly overwhelmed.
Right. They are dealing with overwhelming complexity on a daily basis. Budgets, expectations, market shifts. So when they sit down to interview a candidate who thinks exactly like they do, who validates their existing worldview and solves problems using the same mental frameworks, it feels like a massive relief.
It feels safe. You look at that candidate and think, oh, finally, someone who just gets it.
Exactly that feeling, someone who gets it. But the tension here is that leaders will frequently delay making unconventional choices, not because they lack information about a candidate's hard skills, but because of a deep, unacknowledged discomfort with the risk of bringing in someone who disrupts the harmony.
Yeah, nobody wants to ruin the vibe of their team.
Right. It's much easier to hire the person you'd want to grab a coffee with than the person who is going to respectfully tell you your marketing strategy is fundamentally flawed.
I see this all the time. Hiring for fit feels like curating a playlist where every single song has the exact same tempo and instrumentation.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and it's incredibly pleasant. It makes for great background noise. But eventually you just stop actively listening to it. It just becomes this ambient hum, and you stop paying attention to the music altogether.
And that ambient hum is the sound of an organization losing its competitive edge.
Let me push back on this a little, though, because we have to live in reality. Isn't some baseline level of fit absolutely necessary for smooth operations? I mean, don't leaders need a foundational layer of agreement just to execute on a daily basis without getting bogged down in endless paralyzing arguments?
Well, that rationalization is the exact mechanism that keeps the silent killer alive.
Wait, really?
Yeah. It's a very natural, logical question, but we have to differentiate between sharing core values and sharing a worldview.
Okay, what's the difference there?
You absolutely need a baseline of shared values. Things like integrity, work ethic, or a commitment to customer service. That's your operating system. But when fit expands to mean thinks like I do, or analyzes data like I do, or approaches conflict like I do, that smooth operation you mentioned becomes a straight, frictionless line to obsolescence.
So the lack of argument isn't deficiency.
No, it's just the absence of critical thought.
Wow. Okay, so if the comfort of fit is a straight line to obsolescence, the only logical countermove is to actively hire for the friction you're missing, which means we have to pivot to the scenario's proposed alternative, the shift from a culture fit to a culture add.
And that shift is monumental, and it carries a heavy, heavy burden of accountability for the leader.
Right, because the scenario defines a culture add quite specifically. It says it's the person who brings the perspective you are currently missing in order to scale.
Yes.
They aren't there to blend in. They are there to fill a cognitive gap. It's like, okay, bringing in a culture add is less like adding a familiar spice to a soup and more like introducing a keystone species into an ecosystem.
Oh, I like that.
You know how they reintroduced wolves back into Yellowstone? It's highly disruptive at first. The wolves change the grazing habits of the deer, which changes where the trees grow, which literally changes the flow of the rivers.
Right, it touches everything.
Yeah, it causes immediate stress to the status quo, but ultimately it forces the entire ecosystem to adapt, reroute, and grow significantly stronger and more resilient.
I love that ecological analogy because it really highlights the necessity of disruption for survival. But let's unpack the profound emotional pressure of that mandate for the leader.
It's not easy.
No, not at all. Think about what is actually required to seek out a missing perspective. Before you can even draft the job description for a culture ad, you, as the leader, have to sit down and admit that your current perspective is incomplete.
Which requires a level of humility and self-awareness that completely runs counter to the traditional archetype of the, all-knowing, bulletproof executive.
It requires an enormous surrender of ego. To say, we need a culture ad is to publicly declare there is a blind spot in my vision. And what makes this so incredibly tense is that leadership decisions are almost always made with partial clarity. You never have all the data. So bringing in this keystone species means choosing to move forward responsibly without total certainty of how this new dynamic will play out.
You're intentionally inviting friction into your carefully cultivated team, and you don't entirely know how hot that friction is going to get.
Exactly.
It takes immense presence. I mean, you can't just drop a dissenting voice into a room and walk away.
Yeah.
You have to actively manage the temperature of that room.
Immense presence and profound self-trust. You really have to trust that you possess the emotional regulation and the managerial skill to harness the friction you're introducing.
And I imagine the real hesitation here goes deeper than just a fear of the new hire failing. It's the fear of what the new hire will expose.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when you bring in someone whose explicit role is to see what you cannot see, they're inevitably going to point out where you've been wrong. They're going to question legacy processes that you personally built.
Yeah.
And for a leader, especially one grappling with the quiet imposter syndrome that often accompanies high-level roles, that's a highly visible vulnerability. It's not just about the new hire disrupting the team, it's about the new hire revealing to the board or to the staff where the leader themselves has been falling short.
You've hit on the exact nerve there. The fear of exposing blind spots is why the comfort of the echo chamber is so alluring. It keeps the leader's insecurities safely hidden behind a wall of consensus.
Yeah.
But recognizing that adding new perspectives feels risky emotionally, it forces us to completely reevaluate our definition of strategic risk. And this is where the scenario makes its most counterintuitive claim.
Right. The scenario states very bluntly, sameness is a strategic risk. And it pairs that with the phrase, diversity is depth.
Let's connect this back to the macro picture of scaling an organization, because we've established that sameness feels emotionally safe in the short term.
Right, a room full of clones produces a very smooth Tuesday morning meeting.
It does. But strategically, in a rapidly shifting global market, sameness is fatal.
Because the market isn't static. It's wildly complex, and it's constantly throwing unprecedented problems at you.
Precisely. If your entire executive team only has one shared cognitive framework for processing complexity, your organization lacks depth.
Right.
When a completely novel problem hits, like a disruptive new technology, or a massive supply chain failure, or a sudden shift in consumer behavior, your team will only have one tool to try and fix it.
And if that tool doesn't work,
You have no backup mechanism. You're stuck. This is where the concept of responsibility really takes center stage. A leader's job is not to eliminate their own emotional discomfort by surrounding themselves with agreeable people. Doing so is, honestly, an actual dereliction of duty.
dereliction of duty. That is a heavy phrase, but it fits perfectly.
It is heavy because leadership is a heavy responsibility. True leadership is about exercising judgment in managing the productive friction that depth requires. Avoiding sameness means deliberately stepping out from behind the comfortable shield of consensus and stepping into the harsh spotlight of accountability. You are looking at your team and saying, we are going to disagree, it is going to be frustrating, and I am personally responsible for guiding us through that discomfort to arrive at a superior outcome.
But the timeline of these risks is so deceptive. I mean, I think this is what traps so many smart people. The risk of the culture ad is immediate and tangible.
Yes, very much so.
If I hire someone who actively challenges my team's assumptions, the risk is an awkward, tense, exhausting meeting tomorrow morning. My blood pressure will literally go up.
Yeah, it's visceral.
But the risk of sameness is entirely invisible until a competitor out-innovates you 3 or 4 years later. So how does a leader find the psychological endurance to choose immediate painful friction over long-term comfort? I mean, human psychology is practically hardwired to avoid immediate pain at all costs.
And that timeline mismatch is the crux of the leadership challenge. You are fighting millions of years of human evolution that tells you to avoid the immediate threat, which in this case is the social threat of conflict. To choose the awkward meeting tomorrow, a leader has to anchor themselves so deeply in the future reality of the company that the present discomfort feels small in comparison. You have to tolerate the messy middle.
A messy middle.
Right. You have to endure the cognitive strain of having your ideas dismantled, knowing that the depth you are building in the room is the only armor that will protect the company from that invisible long-term threat of obsolescence.
And if a leader lacks that psychological endurance, they inevitably default back to the echo chamber. Which brings us to the most intimate and honestly the most difficult application of this entire scenario. We've talked about the company culture, we've talked about hiring for the broader team, but the scenario narrows the focus right down to the leader's most trusted confidants.
The inner circle, the ultimate test of a leader's maturity.
Right. The scenario ends with this piercing, very uncomfortable question. Does your inner circle reflect your current worldview or does it challenge it?
This is where the theory becomes highly personal. It's one thing to philosophically agree to hire a culture ad for the engineering department or, the sales team. It's an entirely different, vastly more intimidating thing to invite a dissenting voice into your trusted inner circle.
Why does the inner circle represent such a massive hurdle, though?
Because of the intense, inherent isolation of leadership,
Yeah.
people rarely talk about how lonely it is at the top of an organization. Every decision is scrutinized, every word is weighed.
Right, everyone is watching you.
Yes. Your inner circle is often your only sanctuary. It's the only place where you can let your guard down and just breathe. If that inner circle merely reflects your worldview, you feel intensely supported. It feels like a warm blanket.
All right.
But the harsh reality is, if everyone around you is just nodding, you are effectively operating entirely alone. You are trapped in an echo chamber of one. It just has better acoustics.
Oh, wow, that makes me think of standing in a hall of mirrors. You look around and you see endless reflections of yourself. It might look incredibly impressive, and it might feel deeply validating to see your own genius reflected back at you from every angle.
It strokes the ego.
Right. But a hall of mirrors makes it absolutely impossible to see the actual room you are standing in. You can't see where the exits are, you can't see the structural cracks in the wall, and you certainly can't see the obstacles you're about to trip over. You only see yourself.
That is a brilliant way to visualize the danger of a sycophantic inner circle. And to break those mirrors, to intentionally cultivate an inner circle that actually challenges you, requires letting go of ego in a way that very few executives are trained to do.
Yeah.
You have to lean so heavily on quiet self-trust. You have to be able to sit in a private room with your most trusted advisors, pitch an idea you are genuinely excited about, hear them say, that is fundamentally flawed and here is why, and hold space for that dissent without feeling that your core authority is under attack.
It takes a profoundly secure human being to intentionally invite people into their closest, most intimate professional circle whose explicit job it is to tell them they are wrong.
It requires exceptional psychological maturity. Because in those closed-door moments, certainty is still a luxury you just don't have. You don't know for sure if your dissenting advisor is right or if you are right.
Right, you're both just guessing at the future.
Exactly. But the mature leader accepts that the rigorous synthesis of opposing views will always, unequivocally, yield a deeper, more robust strategy than a single, unchallenged perspective ever could.
It really redefines what a strong leader looks like in the modern world. The old archetype was the visionary dictator, the person who mandates the direction from the mountaintop while everyone else just executes.
Right, the hero leader.
Yeah. But this scenario suggests that real strength is the ability to curate, withstand, and synthesize the friction necessary to find the best vision. So let's pull all of these threads together because we've covered incredible psychological ground here today.
We really have.
We started by identifying confirmation bias as the silent killer, that comfortable, quiet stagnation that takes hold when we use hiring for fit as a psychological shield.
And from there, we explored the intense emotional hurdles of seeking a culture ad. We looked at the vulnerability required to admit our own blind spots and the keystone species level of disruption that comes with introducing new cognitive frameworks.
Right. And that brought us to the realization that diversity isn't just some HR metric. It is the structural depth required for survival. Sameness is the true strategic risk, even if it feels safer in the short term.
Yes, absolutely.
Finally, we looked at the ultimate test of a leader, the inner circle, the terrifying process of breaking the hall of mirrors and inviting dissent into your most trusted sanctuary.
And as we wrap up this deep dive into the scenario, we are not going to leave you with a neat prescriptive solution.
No 5-step plans.
Exactly. The scenario isn't about giving you a tidy answer. It's about leaving you with the right questions to interrogate your own environment. So I invite you to just take a moment of quiet reflection.
Yeah, as you listen to this, think about your own world.
When you look at the people you lean on the most, your own inner circle, notice the moments when everyone nods in agreement. In that silence of consensus, what perspective is missing, and what is it costing you to not have it in the room?
Thank you for tuning into another inspiring episode of Leading Beyond Limits. If you enjoyed today's conversation and want to hear more from our incredible guests, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us. And if you have a remarkable leader in mind who you'd like to hear on our show or any questions and comments, feel free to reach out to us. You can find our contact information in the show notes. Remember, leadership knows no bounds. And with the right insights and determination, you too can lead beyond limits. Until next time, keep reaching for the stars and leading with purpose.
Hey there, it's Wayfair here, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app, when you spot it, a brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's room of choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.